I was a beginner rock climber in my late 20s. With a buddy and I spent every weekend climbing and training at a local indoor climbing center. We loved the challenge and had great fun. We were active club members and avid enthusiasts of the sport. It was our dream to travel and climb different landmarks around the country. We planned a camping climbing vacation as summer approached to test our newly acquired skills. Our rough idea was to begin in Maine, since we lived in Boston, and climb different landmarks across the country, progressively getting more technical and difficult. It wasn't a one-summer plan, but a plan that would take several years to achieve. We would begin in Acadia National Park, free climbing the cliffs of Acadia as beginners, and end climbing El Capitan in Yosemite National Park as experts. August rolled around, and we packed up the car with a tent and our gear and headed to Blackwoods Campground on the coast of Maine. We arrived around 2 o'clock as it was only a 6-hour drive from our homes in Boston. It was foggy and cool when we pitched camp. The Maine coast is like that in summer, hot and dry one day and wet and foggy the next. The forecast was for hot and dry the following days, and we should get some good climbs in. After setting camp up, we decided to drive Ocean Drive and scout some ledges to climb in the morning. There were a bunch of gnarly looking cliffs and ledges with the sea crashing on the rocks below. We were confident our training and physical fitness would meet the challenge. At one point, we walked down to the base of a beautiful pink granite cliff jutting out of the sea. There was just enough ledge for us to stand below it and boulders rounded by the action of the waves below that exposed in the low tide. It's not super high, maybe 40 feet give or take. We hung around discussing and planning our ascent to coincide with the low tide the next day. There are many crevices and cracks for hand and footholds, and the reach between them looked very doable. We took a few selfies to post on Facebook and Instagram to record our first climbing challenge. We went back to the car parked roadside and buckled in to continue exploring when we looked at each other and said, why not now? We have our helmets in the car. The cliff looked challenging but manageable, and we were super stoked to climb. My buddy called first and snapped on his helmet, and I got a good angle to capture his climb with my camera. He picked a line to follow that gave him some good handholds and began climbing. He only went a few feet when he called back that the rocks were all smooth, having been rounded by the sea over thousands of years, increasing the difficulty. A few feet higher, he yelled back that the fog had dampened the rock, and it was slipperier than it looked, but he was still going to ascend the cliff. Besides, he had already gone beyond that point of no return. Easier to go forward than to turn back. I held my breath for him, but it looked like he would attain the top. I was excited to begin my climb. We would celebrate in Bar Harbor tonight with our first challenge in the bag. As he approached the crest, the gradient lowered, and he was almost home. Then I saw his left foot slip and slide back over the rock face, and he was dangling half in the air, half gripping the rock face with his fingers, and half with his weight on his right toe. He gave a push. However, the toe hold slipped over its damp purchase, and he slid back and fell over the edge. I remember my entire body going rigid, and my legs gave out from under me as my friend dropped 30 feet. I can remember the sound of his body coming into impact with the surf and rocks. At first, all I could hear was the surf on the rocks and his agonizing cry. I moved as quickly as I could to get down to him. His injuries were worse than I could ever imagine. He took some head injury. It was the helmet that prevented it from being catastrophic or even fatal. I pulled him out of the surf onto the barnacled rocks and called 911. I could see one leg was at a terrible angle, in a compound fracture, and the bone had ripped through the skin. But without a doubt, the worst damage was to his face. The granite rock had torn the flesh off his chin and right cheek to his eyebrow. Blood was flowing over his eye so profusely I could not see if the eye was there or not. He was barely recognizable. I was traumatized sitting on the rock, holding him in my arms. His lower lip was missing. He had bitten down so hard on impact that he bit his lip off. A rescue unit arrived in 15 minutes, tying off ropes to rappel down the ocean over the cliff face. I don't know how long it took to use ropes in a basket to lift my buddy up the cliff and carry him to the road. From there, he was airlifted by helicopter to the hospital. He regained full mobility in about 6 months and returned to climbing. The doctors said he was either super resilient or fortunate. Either way, he survived this chilling nightmare. This happened during the summer of 2007 while I was on a family vacation to Myrtle Beach. I was 12 and physically mature for a girl my age. Grandma is coming with us. She is an immigrant from Brazil. Even though she's been in North Carolina for 35 years, she still can't speak much English. Although she does understand quite a lot. We talk to her in Portuguese. My younger brother, older sister, and I love Myrtle Beach. We've been there several times. We love putt-putt at the Treasure Island mini golf, the Walking Dead escape room, which if you've never tried, you should, the hotel swimming pool, and of course the beach. First, we hit the pool and played on the slides. After several hours, Grandma, who had been watching us with Mom, wanted to go back up to the room and get out of the sun for a while, and to freshen up before the family headed out for dinner. Mom said she would stay with us kids, but I was starting to burn from the sun, so I said I'd go with Grandma. She and I went to the elevator in the lobby and were waiting for the elevator when it came. We got in, and I pushed our floor. But before the door fully closed, a man put his hand on it, and it reopened. I quickly pushed 2 more floor buttons, and thankfully I did. Mom had taught me never to let a stranger know where my room was. As soon as he was in the elevator, he started making wisecracks. I had a Myrtle Beach t-shirt over my wet swim bikini top, and he said, "Where's the wet t-shirt contest? I want to be a judge. I did make sure you'd win." Then he said if I was staying at the hotel, he would escort me to my room. I very firmly said no thank you. His face defiantly changed with this. Whereas he was all smiles and friendly before, he was now very cold and insisting that he see me to my room. I was beginning to panic, even with Grandma with me. She didn't know what was happening and just looked at the elevator door. He spoke to Grandma at this point, saying, "I'm just being nice, right, Grandmother?" Then the elevator dinged, the door opened, and a man and woman entered. I don't know why I trusted them, but I had to do something. I shrieked, "I don't know this man, and he's trying to force me to take him to my room. I'm scared." The man laughed and said she was a real actor. It's a game she plays every time we get into an elevator. I burst into tears and said, "Please help me," and I think the man and woman could see I wasn't play acting. The man and woman said we will get off together and call your parents. On the next floor, the door opened, and the couple, me and Grandma, got off. Grandma was really confused. She didn't know what had just happened. The couple then escorted Grandma and me back down to the reception desk, and Mom, my brother, and my sister were just coming in from the pool. I still shake in fear thinking about this chilling nightmare and what could have happened if that couple hadn't entered the elevator. So, in the spring of 2017, I graduated from high school and was accepted at the University of Virginia in Charlottesville in September. I had just turned 18 in June and felt like an independent woman, except I was still under my parents' rule, especially the control of my dad, who couldn't get it through his skull that I was going to university in just a couple months and would be entirely on my own. I was desperate to be an adult and to experience life on my own terms. I just had summer vacation with my family to survive first. I dreaded the planned yearly summer RV trip, being cooped up with my little brother and even younger sister for 2 weeks, and being told to watch the kids and have fun with them. Not exactly my dream summer of independence. Then the saving call came. My aunt called my mother and asked if her 2 kids, my cousins, who were the same age as my younger siblings, could join our family on our vacation. My brother and sister were psyched. My mother was in a quandary on making it work, as our RV only accommodated 6 at max. I immediately jumped in and volunteered to stay home. I had an opportunity to work part-time at the pool as a lifeguard, and I promised my mother I'd be fine and take really good care of the house. It didn't take long for me to convince her, and she said she would speak with my father that night. He would be the difficult one. My freedom and independence were a week away. This would go from the worst to the best summer in a single word from Dad. Okay. Which he gave reluctantly and with a lot of advice. I was at that age when a girl really started to value being on her own. The idea of getting to be home alone for 2 weeks was like an adventure into adulthood for me. I was also flattered that my dad trusted me to take care of myself, and that was exciting, as well as having the entire house to myself to hang out and do my own thing, without being disturbed by my brother or sister. Unfortunately, this newfound freedom was to become my worst chilling nightmare. As the door opened, the most traumatic and frightening experience of my teenage years walked in. 12 days of living on my own. The utopian freedom of being home alone, setting my own bedtime and wake time, cooking for myself. I did my own laundry. I did household chores on my own without complaint. I enjoyed cleaning and decided to surprise Mom with a sparkling house when she returned. I felt like an actual adult and loved it, that incredible sense of self-sufficiency. I had a few friends over, and we sat on the back deck and laughed until way after dark. It wasn't that I wasn't aware of the dangers for a young girl at home alone. I had all the warnings from my dad, and with my friends, joked about what I would do if a couple of robbers knocked on the door in the middle of the night. While the thought of an intruder was remote, it absolutely scared me to death. We didn't have a dog, and Dad didn't allow guns in the house. The only thing I could think I could do would be to hide and call the police. I had no clue how to defend myself from a burglar, or someone even worse. I started playing scenarios in my head after talking with my friends. I decided that the best thing to do if I saw an intruder in the house was to quietly run and hide in my bedroom closet, as it was the furthest room from the front door. It was upstairs and to the very back of the hall, the last place a burglar would look for loot. I'd take my cell phone with me and call for help. I'd lock my bedroom door with the strategy to wait it out until the police arrived, avoiding any physical contact with whoever was in the house. I'm a skinny 5-foot and weigh nothing girl, so I would have no chance against almost any guy, and he may not be alone. There could be 2 or 3 of them. It is best for me to just hide and stay silent. But this was all just conjecture, and I know that fear is mostly in our own heads. It's a safe neighborhood where I live. I should not spend my life fearful. So I stopped worrying and continued my daily activities in lifeguarding. So happy I wasn't cooped up in an RV with 4 little kids. But, like life, things happen when you least expect them. And my worst fear of home alone happened that way. I was watching Netflix, and it was getting around midnight. So the house was dark except for the light from the TV inside. Still, as instructed by my dad, the exterior floodlights were on, and I was facing the window to the backyard and could see most of the yard right up to the wood line. I saw lightning in the distant sky, and rain was beginning to tap on the window, so I looked up, and at that moment, I saw movement in the backyard. At first, I thought it was a deer, but it was a man. I instantly executed my staying at home alone plan. I turned the TV off so he would not know I was home alone. I ran to my bedroom, locked the door, crawled into my closet, and sat behind my hanging clothes. Minutes passed and I heard nothing. I thought about going back down to watching my program on Netflix when I heard a glass break in the kitchen. Then a louder bang as someone in the dark kitchen bumped into the table and chairs. There was an intruder in the house. I dialed 911. I was obviously frightened, but I tried to keep a low voice and stay calm and say to the emergency operator that I was home alone and that someone had broken into the house. Our house isn't new, so it has creaky floors. I know by the sound of the creaks where everyone is, and this burglar was coming up the stairs. 2 very distinct creaks told me he was moving steadily up. I whispered to the operator, "Please hurry and put the phone on mute." The doors in our house are like the house, old and solid. I felt safe and locked behind it. Besides, I was in the last room, and any burglar would most likely search for jewelry in the master bedroom and drugs in the bathroom cabinet and run with the loot. What stood between me and the robber was my locked bedroom door. If the thief was really after me and not here to rob us, would the door hold, shooting through my mind? The answer too quickly came, and it was no. The intruder was hunting me. And he knew which room I was in because it was the only locked room. It only took him 3 kicks to shatter the door frame, and it flung open with a big bang. I inhaled air and held my breath as if swimming underwater. I was deathly still sunken in the closet. Heavy breathing entered the room, and a creak from a floorboard told me he was standing at the window. He wasn't just breathing heavily, he was sniffing the air with long pulls through his nose. I could hear it. He was smelling the air as if he could find me by smell. He was acting like some kind of animal, not a human. It was petrifying to be hunted by this beast. A minute passed, and the room was deathly silent. No footsteps, no creaking floorboards, no sound of that ghastly breathing. I lifted my head from my arms and peeked through a crack in the door that ran vertically from the floor up the middle, maybe 1/4 inch wide. What I saw was the most terrifying thing I have ever seen. The man had stripped off his clothes and stood naked before the window. He stood absolutely still, except his hands at his side were shaking as if he were electrified by the lightning outside. This man wasn't a thief or a typical home invader. Something was horribly wrong in his head. He was a chilling nightmare standing in my room. I'm thankful he didn't check the closet. I don't know why he didn't. He must have known that I was in there. I was terror-stricken, cowering in the closet, when I heard the police sirens coming down the street. The trespasser didn't run. He just calmly picked up his clothes and left the room. A minute later, I heard, "Police, anyone here?" They had entered the house through the kitchen door. The intruder had smashed the glass and undone the lock. No sign of the man in the house. He'd apparently slipped out the back and into the woods and disappeared. I called my dad and said the police were here and there was a break-in, but I was fine but rattled. My mom called her sister, who came over, picked me up, and took me to her place for the night. Dad and Mom drove back overnight, arriving in the morning. The strange thing is that this guy was never found. I don't know if he just moved on to another town or was arrested for something else, and our break-in was never connected to him. Was he a mental case, or was he some guy hopped up on some kind of drug? I don't know. I'm out of college now and won't spend any summers alone.